There's a ton of new gameplay options in Madden 26 that will have a huge impact on whether you win or lose games that you definitely don't want to leave to default. Settings that affect everything from your passing to your defense, and an entirely new auto subs wear and tear system that can have your best players on the sideline when you need them the most.
Who the f is that guy?
So if you guys want to see 21 new gameplay settings that you must change in Madden 26, stick around after the intro. If you guys are looking for fast, cheap, reliable MUT coins, check out my coin sponsors at MMOXP.com and use discount code MONEYSHOT for 6% off your order. Link in the description below.
The champ is here!
Welcome back, Money Team. Today's video, I'm going to show you guys 21 new gameplay settings that you can set that are going to give you a huge advantage in Madden 26. But before I do, as always, if you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to be a subscriber, hit the like button, let me know in the comment section. Other than that, it's going to get right into the video. Now, to get to the first set of settings, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the settings tab here on the home screen, and then I'm going to hit edit settings. Very simple to get to. I tried to reset all these as I already had the majority of them set, but a lot of these you choose as you enter the game, including your favorite team, which there is a slight hack. If you play Ultimate Team, you can set your favorite team to whatever team's playbooks you like, which for me probably would have been the Chiefs. I typically choose the Eagles, and I got the Eagles playbooks for free. I had to buy these playbooks, and they were like 3,000 coins on the market, which isn't too bad. But at the end of the day, if you want to save those 3,000 coins early, try to use a team as your favorite team that has playbooks that you like. And if you guys need suggestions for that, I did put out a video yesterday with my top 5 playbooks for offense and defense. I'll have that pop up on screen in the top right corner right now, as well as on screen at the end of the video if you guys want to check that out. And I also put out my Kansas City Chiefs offensive ebook yesterday, which to me is the best playbook in the entire game. It's one of the best passing playbooks. So if you guys need more help and more money plays, you can check that out. Links in the description, as well as the top pinned comment to download that instantly. Now, when it comes to regular online head-to-head, you can actually set your offensive and defensive playbooks to whatever you want on this screen, and it will carry over into that game, unlike college football. So I recommend setting your offensive playbooks and defensive playbooks here so you don't forget in that screen, because otherwise you might go into the game and be stuck with an unfamiliar playbook. After that, we're just going to move down here quite a bit to the coin toss first and second selection. I always go with kick. I want to get the lead in the first half and then get the ball in the second half so I can extend my lead. So to me, this is one of the most important ones to do. A lot of people, in my opinion, I don't want to receive the ball first. I want to put my opponent in a pressure situation where they have to score, or if I get a stop, then obviously it's going to flip the game in my favor very early. So kick is most important to me. After that, I saw a comment of somebody saying to play against wind, and that makes a lot of sense, because if you're in a close game late, you're going to want the ball with the wind in the second half, because you might have to make a long field goal. So to me, my second choice is definitely against wind, as once again, I'm trying to set up the late game situations. After that, when it comes to kick meter, get used to multimeter, because if you play in a competitive mode, it's required. And when it comes to control screen, I like tap and tap over tap and hold. It's just something that has been in the game for so long. I like to play this way. It's really up to you guys, though. If you're new to the game and you're used to the tap and hold, good for you. But me, I like to tap and tap. I like to reset my finger rather than holding it down to time it. It's just a muscle memory thing that I'm used to. When it comes to passing type, I personally think that placement is best. I don't think you necessarily have to worry too much about placement accuracy. I know a lot of people like revamp passing. The only real benefit when it comes to revamp passing is the arc of the pass itself, which you can get in placement simply by doing a high pass. So if you want a higher pass, just hold the L1 or the LB button down as you're throwing, and you'll get a higher trajectory pass in placement or placement accuracy. But like I said, placement's the way that I like to go. I also like to keep my reticle speed at 7 and my pass lead increased to small. If you have it to none, you don't really have the ability to put outside the passing reticle, which to me isn't as common as it used to be, but I still like small, because like I said, sometimes I like to lead my receiver far enough away from the defender that it gets the ball out of danger and only my receiver can catch it. You also have here in the gameplay helpers, this is probably one of the bigger sections every year, as I turn auto flip defensive play call off, because I want to set up my defense. A lot of times that includes flipping the play in the huddle to set up a blitz a certain way. So this I typically have off, but if you don't really do that stuff, you can leave this on. Defensive ball hawk, this is just going to get your defender into a basically in a position where he's going to auto move in a position to make an interception. So there's no reason to have that off. Now, defensive heat seeker assist for some reason is typically off. You're going to want to turn that on, and you can see I already have my heat seeker window size all the way up to 200%, which typically starts at 100%, and a lot of people aren't aware that you can go all the way to 200%. So this is something that's really important to me, as this will suction you in a lot when it comes to making tackles. As far as your defender, it creates like a magnet effect, as you're going to pull your tackler towards the ball carrier, which is going to be very important, especially if you spam A or X, which is your safe tackle function. It's going to increase that to the point where it suctions you in a lot of times to the point where you're almost like warping to the ball carrier. So this is very important. Next up, I have switch stick delay. I have it on slight, although I almost sometimes want to use moderate, because this is basically before the snap function. If I'm moving my defense around and making adjustments, and my opponent hikes the ball, a lot of times this will change your user from the middle linebacker, whoever you're using, the safety, whoever, to whatever random position you're hitting the D-pad or the sticks to the point where it's going to be best to have this at slight, so if your opponent does hike the ball, it doesn't necessarily do that, because that can be very confusing and mess up a play for you. So I typically have this on slight. Next up, we have defensive switch assist. This is something, once again, that will prevent you from just switching to a random player and taking that player out of the play. I like to have this on, as that's something that I don't necessarily really feel that when it's on or off, it's not something that really feels too constricting. And that's pretty much it for the gameplay sliders. You have a lot of stuff here that player sliders is really more for if you're playing like a user-controlled game mode. You can change this. Like I said, I like 60-40. I don't like to take things like fatigue and things like that off. But if you want to lower this to like 40% rather than 50%, you can. But I think that that's really fine. Just leave it like that. When it comes to wear and tear, though, this is something where I might lower everything. I want to use my starters as much as possible. This is something where I'll definitely drop these things to 40, because I don't necessarily want to deal with, too much wear and tear to the point where all my favorite players are just missing for extended periods of time, because we want to use our favorite players. So to me, dropping these all to 40 is the way to go. And then when it comes to the recovery scale, I typically want to put this up to 60. So I'm just basically tipping it in my scales in both directions to the point where I have just basically my favorite players on the field more often, because who wants to use a bunch of backups you don't even know really who they are really. Crossplay, I typically would say to take off if you're having connection issues, because this is something which I don't even like to touch, because this could actually, when I've messed with this in the past just to turn it off, it's kicked me out of the game to the point where I couldn't even get back into it. So this is something that's very glitchy. So if you have the ability to have crossplay, which you have to enable on your console, make sure to do that if you're having connection issues when it comes to online games at any point in time. Next up, we also have something in accessibility, which is something where you can enlarge the on-field graphics. This is something that can be very helpful, especially when you're playing in like hard to see condition games. To turn this on is basically just going to turn on your receiving icons to the point where you can see them better down the field, which I find is definitely helpful. Now, when it comes to the new auto sub system, I feel like the best way to do this is based off position by position, but it also depends on what team you're using and what players you have. If you have, when it comes to quarterback, I would say you definitely want to override this and grind it out. You don't want to have, a backup quarterback in it just about any time you can control that, because your starting quarterback is usually one of the most important positions on the field. But when it comes to running backs, a lot of people do running back by committee, where they really can't tell the difference between their starters and their backups, or they might have 2 or 3 backs that they like. I know with the Eagles, and we have Saquon Barkley, but at the same time, I definitely like, Dylan, and I like some of the other backs. So if I want to, basically override this and keep fresh, I can rotate out my backs to the point where they're all going to be at max speed all the time, because they're always going to be fresh. But like I said, since I have Saquon Barkley, I might typically just want to go to normal or even custom to the point where I can control this. But like I said, to me, this is something I'd probably just leave at default because of the running back that I have. But certain teams have multiple backs, and in that scenario, this is a perfect position to go to keep fresh. When it comes to receivers, it's the same thing that applies. I have 2 really good receivers. I don't necessarily want to sub them out. I'm going to leave that at default. Same thing with tight end, is you typically want your weapons out there. But when it comes to something like your offensive line, you typically want to override this and you want to grind it out. You don't want to have backup offensive linemen in there. You might take a bunch of sacks and stuff like that if you have lower rated linemen, especially if you have highly rated linemen. When it comes to linebackers, same thing. I personally, when it comes to my user, I typically don't. I want somebody that's just fast. So for my user, I might go to keep fresh, as long as I have a good plethora of linebackers, which the Eagles do have. But ultimately, like I said, a lot of these you probably just want to leave at default. When it comes to defensive linemen, same thing. You might want to grind it out depending on who you have. Like I have Jalen Carter. I definitely don't want him to leave the game. So I'm going to definitely grind it out. Defensive ends, these are all the same. The one position, though, where I definitely don't want to have backups in there is in the secondary. So here's something where I'm always going to go to grind it out for both that and for safeties. Because, and I really don't have great safeties. So if I'm being honest, safeties on the Eagles, I probably could just keep fresh, because they don't really have You know, they're all basically similar looking now that we lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So I would say this is a scenario where I definitely want my top cornerbacks out there all the time. But as far as my safeties, I can rotate that and keep fresh. But just to play it safe, I'm definitely going to default there. And I'll leave most of these on default with the exception of, like I said, quarterback, I'm going to grind it out. Offensive line, I'm going to grind it out. And receivers, I'm typically going to grind it out too, because I want some of my best receivers out there on the field. But you can change these based off of what you have on your team. Next up, I'm going to go over the coaching adjustments, because there's a lot of new coaching adjustments as well, including a substitutions tab here, which you can basically change that. So if you have your coaching adjustment, or if you have your substitution set in the menu settings, you can always change that based on the fact that obviously if you're changing teams, you're playing online head-to-head, you're not necessarily going to want to have the same strategies based off the fact that you have different players on every team, or different strengths and weaknesses on every team. So you can do that here. But when it comes to coaching adjustments, we already went over the auto flip. There's a few here that I really want to point out. The defensive motion response, you always want to disable, because if you set up a blitz a certain way and the guy motions across in an auto motion, he can move your blitzer to the point where it's not even effective anymore. They did add a couple of new RPO read keys here, but for option read key, we're definitely going to want to switch this over to conservative to focus on the quarterback, because this is something where you always want to turn the play back inside, and on option plays, the quarterback's going to be the one that threatens to the outside. So you always want to set that to conservative. Same thing with the pitch key. You want to turn the running back inside, you want to turn the quarterback inside. So you want to put this to aggressive to make sure that you're focusing on the pitch to turn the play back inside as quickly as possible. And when it comes to the RPO defense, you want to always have this to conservative to focus on the quarterback once again. And when it comes to the RPO pass key, you're going to do the conservative again as well to focus on pass coverage, because that's going to be the bigger play. Runs plays on the inside once again. All these things are designed to force the play back inside where your help is, as cornerbacks out on an island are just going to get beat every single time. So all four of these are focused on focusing on pushing the ball back inside where all the help is, all the linebackers and safeties and all your linemen. That's going to be the most important thing. After that, there's not really a ton of things here that are new that I would change. You do have safety depth though, which is something that a lot of people like to play in a close setting. Whether you're using cover 2, cover 4, doesn't really matter. Bringing the safeties closer is going to help to get them in the passing lanes a lot faster, and they'll also help out with run defense a lot faster, especially if you're using something like cover 4 match. And that's about the only things that I would change. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the video there. But if you guys want to see more Madden tip videos, I'll have the one popping up about the best playbooks to use popping up on the screen right now. So just click the links. And until next time, thanks for watching, man. My shit out. Need more help or just want to show your support? Then head over to my Patreon and join my team, where you can get exclusive content like ebooks and bonus plays, as well as early access to my vids and more. Link in the description below.